All right, you guys, John's Moto Garage, welcome back to the channel. I'm showing you guys today how to load and unload a motorcycle into the back of a truck. Step one, you guys, you gotta warm up those tires. Let's make sure those tires are nice and warmed up. Perfect. All right, JK, obviously that's not step one. I'm actually going to get a new tire put on. I had to do a burnout before getting a new tire. Otherwise, I feel like I'm putting that old tire to waste. All right, buenos dias, ¿qué pasó, amigos? John's Moto Garage, welcome back to the channel. I've had a few people hit me up asking about how I load up my bikes and the ramps that I use. And also JD Lee, shout out, local sub here. He recommended I do a video on this as well. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go over a few things. I'll show you what kind of ramps I use. I'll go over why I use these ramps, some of the pros and cons to them. I'll go over how to set the ramps up, how to load the bike up, how to unload the bike, and then of course we'll also show you how to strap the bike down and do the tie down. Now, this is John's Moto Garage method. There are tons of other ways to do it out there. Do this at your own risk, just like everything else on John's Moto Garage. Do as I say, not as I do. For starters, you're gonna need a couple things. You got to get your bike. So we're going to be loading up the 2013 Harley Davidson Street Bob Custom. And yes, 2013 does have a custom. Do the research, you'll find it. These are the ramps that we're using, so we'll go over these as well. And stay tuned to the very end. I'll show you, you can use these ramps to load anything from a Honda Grom up to a Honda Goldwing. And I will actually show you some clips of me loading a Honda Goldwing into the back of my truck. So if you didn't think it was possible, stay tuned. I'll show you it can be done. Although I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And big shout out to Bikes, Boats, Bivouacs, Scott over there on the East Coast. He did a video a while back showing how to load a bike up into a trailer, which honestly, if you have that option, I would go trailer over truck any day. Obviously, it's a little bit safer and also doesn't take a toll on the truck. But shout out to Scott. His video's got 10,000 plus views and he did a shout out to me. So hopefully we can return the favor, Scott. Thanks again, brother. All right, so first of all, let's take a look at the ramps that I use. All right, so these are the ramps that I use. These are big boy ramps. You can also find Black Widow ramps, and they probably have a few knockoff brands as well. These are 3 foot wide by 10 foot long. Comes in 3 pieces. Well, you can fold them up, throw them in the back of your truck. So they work really well. They have up to 1,500 pound load capacity. You've got straps you can tie down. And then of course you got this piece that goes through the middle. I'll show you momentarily how we set that up. So big fan of these ramps. Brand new, they're gonna cost you like, I don't know, $600 to $700. I picked these up used on Craigslist. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set everything up and I'll explain to you why I use this method over just having a trailer and some of the pros and cons to this method. And I'll show you, it really is wicked easy to set these up. Extra important that you actually use this piece to keep these together. One of my straps is stuck, so I'm only using the one strap. I don't know how well you can see it, but you strap it under there on the hitch, pull it tight, and you're good to go. So wicked easy setting these things up. It takes literally 30 seconds to a minute. And the reason I use these is because I'm picking up motorcycles at the spur of the moment. If I find a good deal and I'm on the other side of town, I have these in my truck at all times and I can just zip over to the bank, grab cash, and go pick up a bike. For your typical rider out there, you're not gonna have that need. So a trailer is very easy to use. But if for some reason you still wanna go this route and just have this type of ramp so you can load up in the back of a truck, they do work pretty well. Some of the downsides, it does take a toll on the tailgate. So you notice this has definitely been warped. I've had well over 100 motorcycles back in this truck. So anytime you go up over that tailgate, it takes a toll. The ramps themselves though have definitely held up. They've warped a tiny bit, but nothing drastic. They still work just fine. So 1,500 pound load capacity, they are pretty solid ramps. I've used them on trucks that are lifted before, helping other people load up, but I'd recommend just keep with your stock truck. Another pro tip, if you back up to a curb or an embankment, it's going to decrease the angle at which you have to ride up, so it makes it easier. But on John's Moto Garage, we do stuff the hard way. We're never trying to cut corners and do it the easy way. Work hard, not smart. I think that's the old adage. All right, so we've got our ramp set up. We're ready to go. Now, if this is the first time you've ever done this, a few things I recommend. For starters, make sure you're comfortable on the motorcycle. If you're new to riding or you've never ridden, then maybe have a buddy do this. Or make sure you have a few extra hands, a few extra people that can help you out. I always recommend find an area, try to find an area where you're gonna have plenty of space. All right, so you got your ramp set up, you got the bike here. You want an area where you have plenty of space. You don't wanna be in a tight parking lot with a bunch of cars going back and forth. If this is your first time riding the bike, get comfortable on the bike with the throttle, with your, your clutch, the brake, all that. Make sure you're familiar and comfortable on the motorcycle first. It's always good to have a few extra hands available just in case something goes south. So you've got the ramp set up. You want to set your bike up with some space here. And it's going to be intimidating the first time through, no doubt about it. But basically you want to line the bike up straight with the ramps. Of course, you're going to start it up. Put the bike in gear, do a couple run-ups first, kind of get the feel for what it's going to be like when you hit the ramp, just like so. Now, the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to get up into the middle of the ramp and then stop or stall the bike. So that's why it's good to be comfortable on the bike, because once you hit the ramp, you want to just smoothly and consistently maintain the throttle up until you get into the back of the truck. I'm not saying gun it, I'm not saying gas it, I'm just saying smooth, consistent throttle up into the truck. Now, one important point, these ramps, the reason I chose them 3x10, see how they arch the way they do, is because you're not going to bottom out the bottom of the motorcycle. I don't think I've bottomed out a single bike, and I've had some pretty low bikes on this thing. If you have straight ramps that are just like this, you're going to low side it, or you're going to high center it. And bottom it out. All right, so you're on the ramp, you've done a few run-ups, you're comfortable on it. You just gotta commit and be ready to hit your rear brake and pull in the clutch once you get into the top, because you don't wanna run out through the other side of your truck, obviously. Your worst enemy is gonna be if you stop right there in the middle. Now, some people kind of try to walk up the ramp. I haven't done that really myself. I like to get up into the truck quickly. Have your feet on the side, so if you need to, you can catch yourself, but don't rely on one side or the other. Just try to maintain it like you're riding up a hill. All right, so there you have it. That's the first step. So that's only half the battle. We got the bike up into the back of the truck. Now we're gonna tie it down. Before we tie it down though, because I'm actually taking the bike somewhere, I'm gonna unload it and show you how to do that. And then I'll show you the tie down method that I use. I'm sure there's other methods out there that are better. There's always something better, but I'm gonna show you my method. Now, some people put a wheel chock up in there so it keeps the bike straight up. Other people use help and they keep the bike on its side. I'm sure there's a dozen reasons why you never want to roll with your bike on the kickstand, but guess what? I roll with my bike on the kickstand. I keep it in gear. That just minimizes the movement on it. I'm sure there's somebody out there who says that's going to kill your motorcycle, but that's just the way I roll. We're going to pretend I'm unloading the bike now. So unloading the bike is sometimes the more intimidating part for many. And again, if you're not comfortable doing this, get somebody to help out. And sometimes the hardest part is just getting that initial momentum to get it back down the ramp. But when I unload it, I'm covering the feather in the front brake. I've got my feet on either side, and you're kind of looking back to make sure you're on the ramp. You don't want to angle off and fall off. So get some momentum. Make sure you're lined up straight with the ramp, but try not to be on the ramp for too long. And I'm just pulling my front brake to keep myself from losing control. And there you have it, easy peasy, man, easy peasy. Hold the bike up one more time for good measure, and then I'm gonna show you guys how to tie it down. Same thing, you just line it up, make sure you're straight with the ramp. And bam, easy peasy. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next step, tying the bike down, making sure it's secure now that it's in the back of the truck. This is precious cargo. The last thing you want to do is lose it while you're en route to wherever you're going. But whenever I'm loading it down, again, unless I had a wheel chock that I could rely on to easily get the bike on and off, I keep it on the kickstand. It makes it easy for me to load and unload on my own. I've yet to have an issue with this, but again, do it at your own risk. I keep the bike in first gear just to prevent movement. You have to be careful. Some bikes, the front fender will get very close to hitting that. You may have to put a piece of wood or something, like the Harley Road Kings have the full front fender, and you get very close to hitting the fender on there. Get a piece of wood or something that'll keep that front wheel a little bit backed off. I always start by tying down the left side of the bike first. These are pretty solid tie downs. I got them from AutoZone, I think. I've had them for a number of years and they work great. So there's a few places where you can tie the bike down from, and it's gonna vary. Honda Goldwings, for example, they've got all that plastic and stuff. It's hard to find a spot. But what I usually do is I'll go from the handlebar. Sport bikes are hard on the handlebar because you got all kinds of junk up there too. Or you can go from like the fork brace. In this case, you could even go from here, which is what I might try out. Yeah, I like the look of that. Now, I like these. I don't know how well you can see this. This little loop here, and Scott from Bikes, Boats, Bivouacs, he does the same thing. If you have straps that have a loop like this, the best way to do it is you make a loop and you basically put the hook through that loop. And then bingo bango, you've basically created your own soft strap. You can get real expensive straps specifically for tying down bikes, and not a bad investment. I should probably do it myself since I do this all the time, but this has worked just fine. So again, I'll show you that one more time. You basically put the strap through that loop and then put the hook through like so. And you've got your own soft strap for the bike. Again, I tie down the left side first because that way you got the kickstand. All right, and then pull this tight. You don't tighten it all the way initially. You're just gonna get it taut. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just gonna do it right here at the same spot. Again, making our loop. Hopefully you guys can see this. And you don't want to bottom out the suspension. You still want to have some suspension left, so if you hit bumps, you're not bottoming it out. But you do want it to be pretty solid. Now you'll notice there's some play in the front wheel here, and that can get you into trouble if there's too much play one way or the other, because you end up getting too much slack in the line. So I always like to play around a little bit with it. That's the nice thing about having a wheel chock. But again, it's hard with a wheel chock to unload the bike on your own. But it seems pretty solid. Now for good measure, I always like to do at least one extra. If I'm doing a real long trip, I'll do at least two on each side, just in case one fails. I had a buddy, a Marine, who used to tie down tanks, so he gave me some tips. But no, this is definitely not military grade. Check out Bikes, Boats, Bivouacs again. Scott, he shows you how you can also tie down the back tire. I'm not gonna do it this time around. I'm not traveling super far, but again, for longer distance, I would definitely have two up front and something on the rear as well. Another great use for these ramps, they can be used as a slide for your kiddos, or so they can practice American Ninja Warrior. All right, buddy. Got to put them away. Now here's the awesome thing about these ramps, because you can actually put the bike up. You can load the ramps up into the truck. and the ramps fit nicely on either side. I'll tighten something down here to make sure they don't slide into the exhaust and scuff it up. But otherwise, there you have it, you guys. How to successfully load and unload a motorcycle. And once you've done this a time or two, you can have this thing in and out of the truck in a matter of minutes. It really does not take a very long time. And bam, you're good to go. Alright guys, so there you have it, how to successfully load and unload a motorcycle using these big boy ramps. I highly recommend them. I've loaded a lot of bikes using these ramps and they've worked great. Obviously it's easier if you have a trailer, just use a trailer. That method is much easier and safer, but if for some reason all you have is a truck and these crazy ramps, then let her rip. As always, thanks for checking out the channel. John's Moto Garage, I appreciate the support. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will hit you guys up on the next one. Adios.